Now, the extraordinary life story of Jumpin' Joe Byerly, a GI who managed to fight Nazis in the Soviet and U.S. armies, is being celebrated in an exhibition in St. Petersburg. Byerly's son, who is currently the U.S. ambassador to Russia, says the story is a memorable example of the wartime alliance between the two nations. Maria Finoshina reports.
A hero of two nations. Joseph Byerly is thought to be the only American soldier who fought for both the US and Soviet armies against Nazi Germany in the Second World War. In 1944, the 20-year-old paratrooper was dropped over northern France as the Allies opened the Second Front. But just 3 days later, he was captured by the Germans and spent the next 10 months being moved between at least 7 concentration camps.
You've never lived until you've been interrogated by the Gestapo.
When U.S. troops found Joseph's dog tag on a body, his family back home in Michigan received the news they'd always feared. Their son had been killed in action. Little did they know it had actually been found on the remains of a Nazi soldier who'd stolen it from Joseph some time before.
There's somebody up there looking after you, and it wasn't my time to go.
And it certainly wasn't, because despite having been tortured and starved, he managed to escape from his last camp. He ran for an entire day, hoping to be reunited with the US Army, but instead he came across a Soviet tank brigade.
I knew 2 Russian words at that time, Amerikansky Tovarish. I said to her, I says, I want to go with you to Berlin and defeat Hitler.
And so he found himself heading to do exactly that. Standing side by side with Soviet soldiers, Joseph Byerly liberated the very camp he'd escaped from just weeks ago. Berlin wasn't much further, but for Joseph it wasn't to be. Serious injuries meant he wound up in a Soviet hospital, but as fate had it, it led to a chance encounter with the Marshal of the Soviet Army and his chance to go home.
He needed to find a way home, and he didn't have really any documentation to do that. And in a war without papers, it's very difficult to move. So when Zhukov appeared, he realized that this could be a ticket home for him. He described how Zhukov turned over his shoulder and said something to his aide. He said the way generals do when they've made a decision. And he didn't know what that decision was until the next day when he got the letter from Zhukov with which he got back.
John Byerly, Joseph's son, is now the U.S. ambassador to Russia. He says his father's story cultivated from an early age a deep respect and admiration within him towards Russia. And while Joseph Byerly always said heroes are only those who never return, he was proclaimed a hero of two nations.
Thank you, Mr. Byerly. Thank you.
The story of Joseph Byerly has always been too big to stay at home. With this exhibition opening in Russia, it's a chance for new generations to learn of one man's army experience of being the U.S. in the USSR. Joseph Byerly died in 2004, but his story will continue to fascinate people all over the world for many years to come, being a symbol of people's heroism, but also a vivid reminder of a true and unshakable friendship between Russia and the U.S. Maria Finoshina.